Anybody else?
Hamlin gets hit from behind by Ross
3, 2, 1. Green car all in here. We're all good.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 21. Fresh off the Daytona 500. Can't wait to dive into that. Got a lot to talk about. But before we get started, man, Cody, what's going on? How you doing, man?
Hey, man, the Daytona 500, baby. Hell of a race. It had everything in it, man. We saw the big one. We saw a surprise winner. We saw the suspense towards the last 5 to 10 laps of the race. I'm just happy NASCAR's back, man.
Me too, man. I feel like it. I feel like every year it delivers us a green, white checkered. Like, I feel like that's a guarantee. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, you already know
that would be like minus 350.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And then coming back, that first green, white checkered, you're not getting through that. Like, that's not happening.
Let me ask you this. This isn't, a topic of ours, but this is something that I've always thought NASCAR should do. So I want to hear your thoughts on it. I know that the green, white checkered is literally green, next lap, white, checkered, boom, done. Basically, you have 2 laps to settle everything. Do you feel like super speedways should have it where there's 3 laps total? Because at first lap, it seems like it just takes them forever to get up to speed.
It does. It does. I don't know. Something about that green, white checker, though, man. I think they should stick with it. Man, I don't know. That's a good point, though, especially on speedways.
I mean, and I guess, and this isn't to get
that's
too
a good
far
point.
and do it, but I look at it like, I mean, I guess you could say even short tracks, right? I mean, 2 laps at Bristol takes 25 seconds, 30 seconds. It's over with. Like, should you get maybe 3 or 4 laps on a short track? Because it's like, what's really going to happen in 2 laps outside of the front 2 to 4? You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just some thoughts that I've had. Maybe NASCAR can look into and possibly changing.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff NASCAR can look into and possibly change, man. And I think we'll see some changes over the years really to come, and hopefully better for the sport. But listen, Daytona 500, man, I thought it was a really good race. To kind of jump into it and talk about that last restart. For me, man, I thought that was the only disappointing part is we didn't get to see them race back to the finish line. NASCAR, if it's safe, they'll kind of hold off on throwing that yellow and let them race back to the start finish line, especially at a super speedway, because it gives plenty of time to come back around and kind of catch their speed and slow down to avoid the wrecked cars. But too many cars piled up on that last wreck, man. So they decided to throw the caution, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. gets his 3rd win of his career. I believe all 3 wins have come on restrictor plate races, or at restrictor plate races. 2 at Daytona, 1 at Talladega. But yeah, man. I mean, I think it was a hell of a race overall. It sucked in the fantasy pool for me. I had a terrible week.
Both of us.
Chase Elliott and Eric Jones. And man, I'm not. When Sean said to resend your picks, I was very close to sitting Chase and putting Chris Buescher in there. I was very close, just because Chris Buescher does every year. He's just always up there in restrictor plate races, and I didn't pull the trigger on it, man, and I definitely should have. With the amount of cars that were wrecked towards the end, I was hoping that Denny Hamlin was going to have a shot to it, but Denny Hamlin was kind of invisible the entire day.
You didn't hear from that dude at all.
Which I guess at Daytona is a good thing and a bad thing. Obviously, he gets collected in that last wreck. But yeah, man. I guess your overall thoughts on the race and kind of how you felt about it.
I mean, like I said, I think it had everything involved. I was a little nervous when it started because you could see the cloud coverage coming in. I thought that we were going to get one of those Daytona 500s that don't start until 8:00 at night. But they were able to get the whole race in. And again, it's one of those things where you already know the last 10 laps of the race is where 10 to 15 laps of the race, everybody's going to be pushing to get up front. That's when you have no friends. You know, it's literally, I'm going to do what I have to do to better my position on the track. And that's when all the things happen as far as people getting spun out, the big ones happening. We saw that towards the end. What was it? 2 or 3 wrecks in the last maybe 10 laps or so. And I mean, that
Yeah.
you're expecting that, especially at the Daytona 500, right? Like that's a prized possession. That's the mecca of all races for NASCAR. But no, I think it had everything. I do agree with you though. There has to be something NASCAR can do that we get to see these guys race to the finish line. Because if I'm not mistaken, where did that last wreck happen?
I thought it happened midway down the
The backstretch.
backstretch, which
Agreed.
to me, at least if it not midway, you're coming right into midway. Which to me personally, as big as Daytona is, plenty of time for those drivers to slow down. Plenty of
Plenty.
time for them to slow
Agreed.
down.
I don't know. I kind of feel like NASCAR, they got too flag happy, too like the trigger finger was just there. I think that they should have let that play out because I mean, we were about to see a crazy battle with Stenhouse, Logano, Christopher Bell, all of those guys. We were going to get a great race, and it just sucks that it had to end under caution and they couldn't race back to the flag. But
Yeah.
overall, though, I give it an 8.5 out of 10.
And kind of sticking on that, man, I think NASCAR is going to be, and I hate to say this because I don't want it to be this way, but I think they're going to be kind of flag happy this year. Not only with cautions, but I guess something that stuck out to me was I think it was the Xfinity or truck race. I can't remember, whichever one got called for rain. They were quick to throw that multiple times just for sprinkles. Nowhere else on the track was it pouring down raining. But I think last year was the year that they caught kind of a lot of flack for not throwing the flag. I think it was at Daytona.
It was the cutoff race.
Yeah, where they didn't throw the flag and those drivers ended up wrecking. And so far this year, obviously just one race in, but it looks like the sight of sprinkles, unless you have an option for rain tires, they're going to throw the flag, which I guess I don't really have a problem with as long as they're consistent with it. But yeah, they were not playing around. Sprinkles, they're throwing it.
Yeah, for sure. So looking at it, as you said, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he gets to win. I totally forgot to do a top 10 graphic. Wasn't even thinking about it.
Oh, you're good, dude.
So Ricky Stenhouse finishes first, Joey Logano second, Christopher Bell third, Chris Buescher fourth, Alex Bowman, your boy, fifth, AJ Allmendinger sixth. I mean, let me just speak on that real quick. AJ Allmendinger, it's like you didn't really hear much from him in the first, I'd say maybe 80% of the race.
Couple mistakes, at least one that stuck
Couple
out.
mistakes for sure. One on pit road, I believe, but when I tell you that dude was up front making moves towards the end, I mean, my man was ready to get that Daytona 500 win. It was awesome to see. Daniel Suarez 7th, Ryan Blaney 8th, Ross Chastain 9th, and Riley Herbst 10th. Yeah, exactly. The number 15.
Go ahead.
I don't even think he's a full-time driver. And how about this?
I was about to say, go ahead and read off number 11. I know that's where you're going, ain't it?
That's exactly where I was going. Shout out to Travis Pastrana, the motocross GOAT. He finishes 11th in his first and what sounds like only Daytona 500 of his career. That's awesome.
Man, I'm not trying to I like him. He's a likable guy, and I'm talking about Eric Almirola. Like in that situation, I know you're coming down to the end of the Daytona 500, but to push a guy in that situation as hard as he did, Travis Pastrana, a guy who's not used to getting that kind of push or hit or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I thought that was kind of uncalled for, and obviously, that caused the big one there at the end. So that was unfortunate to see. He was having a really good run. Jimmy Johnson was having a really good run. And guys, your favorite guy, Ryan Blaney, was having a good run after a long day. And Kyle Busch, he had a mistake early on in the race. So multiple drivers that kind of made mistakes early in the race, they were able to avoid the wrecks later into the race and not make mistakes later in the race. And you caught them running up front, which was pretty good to see. So yeah, man, I thought it was a really good race overall. I thought the whole weekend was really good overall. I think it's a truck race that was kind of called early for rain, but I would say probably the wildest thing I saw all weekend was just the I don't know if you were able to watch it, but just the dismantle of Junior Motorsports in that Xfinity race. I think they were running like
I didn't see any of it.
Man, they they just kind of shit the bed, man. They didn't. I think they were running two, 3, 4, 5, with a few laps left, and man, ended bad for all of them. I think one of them got a top 3 finish, finished 3rd or 4th.
So they pulled a Penske.
Yeah, pretty much. And before I got on the show, I saw Junior already uploaded on his podcast. He kind of talked about it. I hadn't had a chance to listen, but I'm interested to see what his opinion is on that. To have all of your drivers up there in a race at Daytona, I mean, one is just rare. To have all of your team's cars healthy, I guess you could say, in one piece, and then to kind of mess it up towards the end of that was pretty crazy to see. So that was kind of the craziest thing that I saw this weekend.
We're going to talk about this team a little later on, but like I really, and I know that the finish doesn't necessarily show for it because only one of their cars finished top 10 that I just read off. But RFK, man, those cars were dialed in. Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski, man, when those two hooked up, they were 100% the best cars on the track.
Man, man, Brad Keselowski is, and Chris Buescher too, but Brad, man, he's an elite level plate racer, man. I mean, man, he is good. He pushes people the right way, but he's also one of those people, like, he has a strong car, you better get out of his way or he 100%. Will. Yeah. So it was really good to see him run up front. Good to see the 17 run up front. And I can't wait to talk about that, man, because that's going to be something good to dive into. Any other thing that you want to say overall about the 500 before we kind of jump into the first topic?
No, I think we covered it.
So I want to dive into this. It was interesting to see what Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon were going to do to come to that last. I think it was the last restart, correct?
Yeah.
That they had. Caution flag ran late. It was a green, white checkered, and you had Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch 1 and 2.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. That wasn't the last restart.
It wasn't.
No.
Okay.
Because the last restart, if I'm not mistaken,
Austin Dillon got into it, or he wrecked, right?
Yeah, that's what caused the wreck to set us up for the last restart.
Gotcha. So them coming to that restart. They decided to choose. I was kind of shocked to see them choose each lane. One on the outside, one on the inside. I figured they would kind of go, bumper to front end. Honestly, I thought that's the way they were going to go, and even the announcers were kind of shocked about it too. But they quickly went into. I think it was the in-car radio they were talking, or somebody on the broadcast said it. Exactly how that was going to play out, and that was that Austin Dillon was going to let Kyle Busch come down in front of him, and honestly, it worked. It worked. But that outside lane ended up getting a lot of momentum, man. So I guess you could say technically it didn't work. I guess in that situation, man, what would you have liked to have seen? Did you think Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon played the right move? Because in that situation, you're playing chess.
Yeah.
Against everybody else. Because who else would you want either beside you or behind you than your teammate? Me personally, I probably would have rather had him behind me, and then just fought it out that way, or just ran side by side and made the best person win. But I want to get your opinion on it, man. What did you think about that restart? Did you think that they made a mistake?
When they came to the choose line and you saw one take the outside, one take the inside, I was definitely one of the ones that said that makes no sense. In a situation like this, especially when you're thinking this is going to be the final restart of the Daytona 500, it's rare that you're going to have a teammate up there with you, right? Normally the big one has already collected somebody of your teammates. So to have them 1-2, I was for sure they were going to line up in the same lane. But as you said, the announcer, I think it was Clint Boyer, I believe, is the one that mentioned what was going to happen. And it happened exactly like that. Austin Dillon allowed Kyle Busch to get in front. It played out exactly how you would want it. And I guess it makes sense to a certain degree, because what happens if Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch line up in the same lane? Let's just say they choose the bottom. And then the top has so much momentum that next thing you know, they're sitting fifth or sixth. You have a couple cars come down and get in their lane. Now they have no chance to win the Daytona 500. So I guess when you're looking at this, um, hindsight's 2020, as they say, they made the right call. The Daytona 500 is just so unpredictable that you don't know what's going to happen.
I would say that for me personally, it sounded right in the moment, right? Like we kind of scratched our heads, but when it was kind of explained on the broadcast, like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's a good idea. But now kind of looking back on it and seeing how it played out, I personally would have rather had them side by side and let those two block the cars behind them. And at least, I mean, I feel like the percentage has got to be higher for one of those drivers to come out with a win. I mean, because you're controlling both lanes in a sense with what each car, each RCR car on the top side and the bottom side. In that situation, I feel like you're playing with your teammate and also battling your teammate to the end. Because I feel like that would be a guaranteed win unless somebody went out on the high side to create a third lane, which everybody would have to go with that person, because let's be honest, we didn't see rarely any three wide racing at all. We just don't see that no more with these cars. We're not going to. So, yeah, man, I mean, for me personally, I probably would have done what they did, but I probably would have not let Kyle Busch down low. Because that opens up that top lane to give them the momentum that they got. And that's kind of how it played out.
So basically, you're saying they should have done the reverse to where Kyle Busch let Austin Dillon in front of him on the high side.
Oh no! Honestly, for me, I say keep it the way you keep it what it is.
Keep it side by side.
Because you're running two lanes to the finish. With the green white checkered. I mean, because again, it's going to be a ballsy move for somebody to create a third lane. And you got to ask yourself, are they going to go with that third car and leave you in the middle? What are you going to do there in that situation? And for me, I just feel like the percentage of one of the RCR cars winning, if they would have been higher if they would have kept Kyle Busch on the high side.
I guess I look at the thought process of what they did like this. If you have it where you have them line up behind one another, I guess it becomes one of those things where it's like, obviously there's a lot of communication going on between the two because they're teammates. So you know what your teammate is going to do. He's going to push you. Like basically the gloves come off probably the last half a mile of that race. But when you have them side by side, like what they did, even though they did end up getting into each other's lane to push, you still have so much uncertainty because you don't know what that car behind you is going to do for those 2 laps. I mean, think about it. You had Joey Logano up there who was ultra aggressive. Brad Keselowski at a point was up there who's ultra aggressive, especially towards the end. I just kind of feel like there were some players up there that while they are very good at super speedway racing, you're at that point of the race where, hey, man, I'm trying to get a win. I could care less about what happens to you. So you'd rather have that guy that you know that you're likely getting team orders from the owner, Richard Childress himself. You'd rather have him behind you.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, man. It makes a lot of sense. I don't know, man. I mean, because I think when Kyle Busch dropped below, it opened that top lane for the 22, right?
It did. So, and that's kind of what I was saying to you. I understood what you were saying. You wanted to keep them one here for the whole race. Kind of basically like, look, nobody's going to pass us. We'll duel it out at the end. But I guess what I'm saying is instead of Kyle Busch moving from that top lane to the bottom, should Kyle Busch had kind of let off to let Austin Dillon up top, since the top seemed to have the most momentum?
That's a good possibility. Yeah, I could definitely see it going that way. I don't know how reluctant, how Kyle Busch would feel about that, just knowing him and his personality.
Yeah.
But I understand, man. I mean, there's so many different ways. I mean, if it would have worked for them, we would have been talking about how great of a decision it was and how great of a move that it was, and it just didn't work out for them. And that's just the 500. I mean, because those two didn't win, Logano didn't win. So it's just the way it plays out, man.
Definitely.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next topic, and that is a topic that I feel like is talked about every weekend, and that's should NASCAR bring practice back? Cody, how do you feel about it, man?
100%. Like, I mean, it's kind of wild when you think about it, right? Like, NASCAR got away from practice due to COVID a few years ago. I understand why. You wanted to kind of keep it to where there wasn't much interaction or people close to one another for as long as whatever. But it's like, all right. I mean, I know COVID isn't over because people are still catching it, but at the same time, like things have relaxed a little bit. Practice needs to come back, man. I mean, this whole hey, we're gonna qualify, and then basically y'all have to figure out what kind of car you have during the race. That's no way of doing it. I mean, at the very least, bring back 1 hour of practice for the weekends for every race so that these drivers know what they have and what tune-ups or what changes they need to make to their car to give them the best chance to win. I don't understand why NASCAR hasn't brought this back yet.
Yeah, I don't get it either, man. At least start in, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's no explanation for it. If there is, I haven't heard what exactly it is. I don't know. I just feel like that, especially on the super speedways, man, or at least they should have had practice for the Daytona 500. I get it. You had qualifying, you had the duels, but that's just totally different, man. You got to have some time to put out, you got to have some time to be out there on the track. We had a bunch of new drivers that just aren't used to this car. That's another topic in itself that definitely could have used the practice to kind of gauge where, how they're feeling about this car. And also, again, to your point, just for all the other cars in general to see how their car is running, what tweaks they need to be made. I've missed that practice and then going out and delivering the best car possible. Now you're kind of going out there on a whim. Basically, you're just making it super loose to the point where you get a lot of speed into it and you're going for the pole, or you just kind of tighten it up or get it to where you think it might be perfect for race day, which you're not going to be as good as in qualifying because you're not getting that speed in clean air. So I don't know, man. I just think I've never understood the process of not bringing practice back. It benefits nobody. So I don't know what NASCAR's holdup is on this at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to ask you this. It has something to do with basically NASCAR weekend, not necessarily practice, but the Daytona 500 is one of the most unique races, especially for that weekend when you're talking about qualifying and where you're going to start on Sunday. Obviously, they have qualifying that only determines the front row. But outside of that, third on back, it's determined by the dual races. So I just want to throw this out to you really quick. It's not a topic of ours. I just thought about it based off of the question that we have. Would you like to see at least every oval track that we go to adopt a sort of racing style qualifying? It doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? Like you can kind of do it like the duels, right? To make it a little more fair because you're not going to do, 500 laps at Bristol to qualify. Like, maybe you do 100 laps because that's not as time consuming. So like, you break it up. You have, if there's 42 cars trying to qualify, 21 in one heat, 21 in another heat. And then maybe you take the top 5 to 7 from those heats and you have it to where that's where you decide 1 through 14. I don't know. It's just I think NASCAR is trying to find ways to bring in more money to the sport. And when you think about it, I know that the Cup Series is what's bringing in the most. Xfinity, it's not a sellout every week. Truck Series, it's not a sellout. But on those days that maybe you have a truck race on a Friday night, get some more people in the stands by doing these little heat races to determine qualifying.
Yeah, man. I mean, I remember, I never really went to like growing up, we would always go to the Xfinity race at Richmond. It wasn't until I was older we started going to the Cup race, and we would always go on Fridays. And as soon as my uncle got off work, we would head up to the racetrack, and you get up there around 4 p.m., 5 p.m., you're watching qualifying for the Cup race.
Yep.
So that was kind of what I was looking forward to, obviously with the Xfinity race as well, but being up there to see the Cup guys on the track was really intriguing. So your proposal was really intriguing as well. I don't know how teams and drivers would feel about that, only because I feel like when you add when you add that type of, I guess, heat race into it, there's a potential of damaging cars, you totaling your car, which we as fans don't care about. The more racing, the better, I guess. But looking for from a team aspect point, I don't know how on board they would be for that. But for me, fan-wise, I think that's a hell of a great proposal.
I don't think it would ever happen because I think that there would have to be some sort of voting that would have to take place. And I can almost 100% guarantee you there won't be a single team owner that would go for that because of what you said, the possibility of damaging up your equipment, which just means more money's coming out of your pocket. They're not going to be down for that. But it's just something I thought about would be very interesting on race weekends for sure.
Oh no, absolutely, man. Trust me, man. I would love to see that. I would, bring back cars be on the track. Period. Like bring back more of that. Whether that is just straight up practice, whether that is a heat race, I would love to see that. But NASCAR's definitely got to do something with this practice, man. They got to bring something back.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, man. Do you want to introduce the loose, tight, or just right topic? This was something you came up with, so I'll kind of hand that over to you.
All right, yeah. So for this loose, tight, or just right, it's basically we have a few topics where we're going to choose loose, right, or loose, tight, or just right. Basically, what that means is loose means you strongly agree, just right means that it's spot on, and tight means that you strongly disagree with the topic. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with the very first one, and that's going to be Kyle Busch. All right. We saw what happened to him at the Daytona 500. Didn't necessarily. Actually, we saw what happened to him all weekend. Basically, some bad luck. And we saw that happen a lot in 2022. So, loose, tight, or just right. Daytona 500 overreaction. Kyle Busch is going to have a similar year as last year. What do you think, Mike?
Man, I'm going tight on this. This is my champion. This is my championship winner. I just have a feeling Kyle Busch has a different attitude this year, at least not for post-race, because he gives still the same attitude post-race interview. So he's going to be him, I guess, in that way. But I guess on the track for me, I feel like he's just going to run a lot better this year, man. I think one of the biggest reasons that I picked him to not only win some races this year, but win the championship is because, one, I feel like his mind is cleared. He doesn't have that contract bearing over him anymore. He's with a company in a car who he feels comfortable with. Obviously, at least at Daytona, ran strong with. And really, he ran strong all day long. He had that penalty. I think it was speeding on pit road is what he got. So that kind of kicked him to the back of the field, and he had to work his way back up. But he was the driver right there at the end. We just talked about it. Both RCR cars were, and we kind of expected that if they were able to avoid the good ones, because we talked about how good Austin Dillon was or is at these super speedways. And it was just refreshing to see Kyle Busch back up front again. Unfortunately, he was not able to get the win. And unfortunately, he did wreck out in the end. Things just didn't go his way. But I was really impressed with what we saw from him at Daytona, man. I think it's an encouraging sight to see. Because let's be honest, there were not a lot of times last year where we saw Kyle Busch run up front. So already going into race one, seeing him run up front, that 8 car looks strong, just as strong as it did last year with Tyler Reddick in it. So I'm gonna have to disagree with this one, man. I'm going tight, right? Yeah, tight.
Yep. Tight means you strongly disagree, and I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to say tight as well. Looking at it, man, I can't tell you the last time I've seen Kyle Busch have that strong a car at a super speedway. We saw him in, I think it was the second duel, where, I thought he had it won until he got turned by, I think it was Daniel Suarez, hit him in the wrong area of the car. But it's not just that. We saw last year, if he had a strong car, at some point of qualifying maybe that week that it just did not transfer to in the actual race. But we saw, and he had a strong car in qualifying. He had a strong car in the duel. He had a strong car in the Daytona 500. Basically, the trifecta of the Daytona 500 weekend. So, as you said, you brought up great points. He doesn't have the contract weighing over his head anymore, right? He's at a team that he believes wants him. Obviously, towards the end of that JGR era, it got sour. He probably felt like they didn't want him. So I just kind of feel like Kyle Busch is out here to prove people wrong, to prove that he still has it, but also to have some fun. So I'm going to go tight on this one. I don't think that this year is going to be anything like last year because I don't think I've ever seen a driver have as much bad luck as Kyle Busch did in 2022.
No, I agree, man. I agree.
So the second topic on this loose, tight, or just right is RFK, Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, is going to be more competitive than Stewart Haas Racing this year. What do you think about that, Mike?
I'm going to let you go first, actually, on this one.
Okay. I'm going to say this is just right. Okay. It's hard to gauge a team based off of the first race of the season because it is a super speedway. Pack racing. We can't tell who's strong, who's not strong. But to see what both of those cars looked like in the Daytona 500, like I said, I think they were the best cars all day. I don't know, man. Something's telling me that I said Keselowski, he was he was playing owner last year. He's playing driver this year. Chris Buescher sees the vision that Keselowski had coming here last year, got the win late in the season last year. I think that these boys are ready to compete. And when you look at Stewart Haas Racing, Kevin Harvick going into his last year, we believe that, he's going to be able to make a little noise. But Eric Almirola, no confidence. Ryan Preece hasn't showed us anything. And then Chase Briscoe, great story last year. Is he going to be able to duplicate that success? I just feel like the experience that RFK has, especially with Keselowski at the helm, I think that, yes, this is spot on. They are going to be more competitive than Stewart Haas Racing in 2023.
Yeah, I agree with that too, man. I don't have all that much confidence in Stewart Haas Racing. And then coming into this year, I talked about it on last week's episode and on the crossover show. Something about this team, man. I think it was you who mentioned this, that Brad Keselowski, his first year was like in owner mode, and this year he's in driver mode. And if that race that we just got a few days ago was any indication, I mean, man, they're going to have a hell of a year. And we saw them really come on towards the end of the year last year. Chris Buescher was able to get a win last year. That same race, Brad Keselowski probably had the strongest car, but ended up blowing a tire and wrecking out. So listen, man, I'm really excited about this team. I think this is going to be the most improved team this year. I think they have at least 2 wins under their belt, maybe 1 each, maybe Brad gets 2, but I'm very confident in this team. So I'm going to go just right, for all the reasons that you said. And just because I just don't have a lot of confidence in Stewart Haas right now.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. So the final part of this loose, tight, or just right deals with Hendrick Motorsports. All right, we haven't seen Hendrick Motorsports win the Daytona 500 in a little time. And when you look at this, and we talked about this on last week's episode, we both said that there is a great shot that front row to start the race is going to be Hendrick Motorsports, and it was exactly that. The boys can get it dialed up in qualifying, but they just don't seem to be able to finish the race. So, Mike, I ask you, Hendrick Motorsports won't win another Daytona 500 for the foreseeable future. Loose, tight, or just right?
I'm going to say just right again. And a lot of that has to do just what we've seen recently, and that is not a whole lot from Hendrick. They're just not there at the end to compete for races. I think, I was shocked to see Chase Elliott win Talladega last year in the playoffs. Hendrick is just not as strong as you think as they should be at these super speedways. As you said, they come in strong for qualifying. They always get the front row. I believe this is Alex Bowman's 5th year or 6th year getting the pole at the
Seems
500.
like it.
Yeah, so it's one of those numbers. So he's super high up there, and just Hendrick, they dominate when it comes to qualifying, which is great and all, but it's not where you start. It's obviously where you finish, and just not highly impressed with anything that I've seen from Hendrick. Obviously, most of the Hendrick cars look to be in qualifying form, except for Chase Elliott, and Chase got wrecked out early, so we never got to see what he did. Kyle Larson had a really good race going, was there to compete at the end, but kind of got shuffled in the middle and ended up getting wrecked by Travis, which was caused by Eric. So very unfortunate events really for Hendrick, period. I think, what was it? William Byron or Alex Bowman was the one. William Byron and Alex Bowman were the only two to finish. Or no, William Byron was the only one that finished with a complete car.
Well, Alex Bowman had the best finish of them all.
Or
He
Alex
got
Bowman,
a top. Yeah, Bowman finished 5th. Looking at the rest of it, Kyle Larson 18th, William Byron 34th, and Chase Elliott 38th.
Yeah, so Alex Bowman was the only one to really survive in that race, and it kind of seems like an every year thing for Hendrick, just not being able to run good at the super speedways. So you take that Talladega win out of last year, man. They just struggle for whatever reason at these plate tracks. So I keep saying plate tracks, they're no longer plate tracks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Super speedways. So I don't know, man. That sounds just right to me. And until I see something more, even if it's just like a come down to the last finish, whatever. I don't know. I'm just not confident in that at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this. This is just right for me. I guess when I look at Hendrick Motorsports, I would say that the best super speedway racer that they have right now is definitely Chase Elliott. I feel like he is their best chance to win another Daytona 500. But for some reason, I don't know if Hendrick sold his soul, 10 or 15 years ago for a Daytona 500, but it just does not seem like these guys are able to finish. I can't tell you, and I mean, this is just off the top of my head. I very well could be wrong. I can't tell you the last time we saw 2 Hendrick drivers finish in the top 10 of the Daytona 500. And just kind of going back, looking at Hendrick's last Daytona 500 win, you'd have to go all the way back to 2014 when Dale Jr. won it. And what's so crazy about that is they actually went back to back. Jimmy Johnson won it in 2013. Dale Jr. won it in 2014. But you look at it, if a Hendrick driver doesn't win it next year, Hendrick will have gone a decade without winning this race. And when you think of NASCAR, the first team the majority of people think about is Hendrick Motorsports. They are that team to beat in NASCAR. And just to know that it's been a decade or close to a decade that they haven't won the biggest race of the year is pretty insane to think about.
Yeah, man. It's just something that you wouldn't even, I don't know. It's hard to comprehend. So
it is. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our final main topic, which is a favorite of mine, over under. So I actually have some stats to kind of let y'all understand where these numbers came from.
Let me go ahead and mute my mic, take a bathroom break.
Right. So we're going to start with the first one, and that is going to deal with Kyle Larson. So over under laps led for Kyle Larson at 27.5. And to give you some numbers to back this up, in the last 5 races at Auto Club, Kyle Larson has an average laps led of 27.6. So this is right there where he's been these last 5 races of the year. So Mike, over under 27.5 laps led for Kyle Larson this Sunday.
I'm going to go with over. I actually think Kyle Larson dominates this race. But I'll kind of not going to say he's my winner. I'll tell you he's not my winner. So, but I do think that he dominates the day, and I think it kind of comes down to pit strategy and just kind of how the race plays out at the end. But I think Kyle Larson is going to do absolutely phenomenal here, which kind of sucks for him. I don't want to say sucks for him, but this Daytona 500 ending sucks for him because he was running good, and we just talked about how Hendrick Motorsports, they just don't run good. So Wow, I'm struggling tonight. I promise I've only had one beer. at the super speedways. So, that would have been really good back-to-back weeks for him, but it's just kind of how the 500 played out. But I think Kyle Larson, he's just great at Auto Club. So I'm going to go over, man. I think that he has a dominating day.
Did I cut out?
You did, but you're good now.
Okay, I'm back. All right, I'm actually going to go with under here. So here's the thing with stats. You can manipulate them kind of any which way you want. So as I said, Kyle Larson, right? He, in the last 5 races at Auto Club, he has an average laps led of 27.6. Here's the thing. He's only led laps in 2 of the last 5 races. 110 in one race, and I think it was like, I don't know, like 30 laps in last year's race. So I'm going to go with the under. I do think that he is able to get up front and lead a few laps, maybe 11, 12 laps, maybe on a good run. I don't know, man. There's a driver who I have as my race winner that I think is going to dominate this race. I don't know why you're hating, man. But anyway,
I mean, man, I feel like you picked the guy the last 8 races. But
that's
whatever.
a lie. 100% a lie. But anyway, yeah, so I'm going with the under here. So moving on to the next one, we have Joey Logano. So I have him, Joey Logano finishes position 6.5, over or under on that. And just to give some numbers on that, on the last 5 Auto Club races, he has an average finish of, I'm sorry, I just had it pulled up and I lost it. There it is right there. Joey Logano has an average finish of 5.8 in the last 5 Auto Club races. And with that being said, out of those 5 races, he has 4 top 10s and 4 top 5s. So, Mike, over under 6.5 for the finish of Joey Logano at Auto Club.
I'm going to go over. So that means he finishes in the top 6, right?
Actually, that's a great point. That is a great point.
I'm pretty sure. All right, how about this? He finishes in the top.
I'm looking at it like points in basketball, right? Like, so if you pick over 200, so I would think if you pick over 6.5, that means that he's going to finish 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. So it would be the under if you feel like he's going to finish better.
True. So I'll go under. Okay. I think that he has a really good day here at Auto Club. I mean, for everything that you just kind of sped out, man, those are great stats. He's really good at this track. He is a guy who, unless he runs into some trouble, you can guarantee that he's most likely going to run up front for most of the day. So I have Joey Logano. I have him going under that top 6.5. So I think he has a good day at Auto Club.
Yeah, I'm going with the under as well. Like, I'm going very under on this one for Joey Logano. I think that he has himself a day. We might revisit this a little bit later on, but yeah, I'm definitely going with the under here. He just seems to know this track very well. If I'm not mistaken, is this the track him and Kyle Busch got into it, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, where Kyle Busch got up bloody? I don't know. If anything, that's what sparked the fire under Joey Logano at this racetrack. That's for sure. So, yes, me and you both agree. We're going with the under 6.5 for Joey Logano, where he finishes on Sunday. And the last prop, I guess you can say, for this over-under is on lead changes. So, Mike, over under 22.5 lead changes this Sunday. And just some numbers to back that. The track average, this is in all the 32 career races at Auto Club, the track average is 22.87. And to give a little context to that, last year they had 32 lead changes, which was 3rd most all time at that track.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under, man. I don't think we're gonna get up that high. I don't know. I just have a feeling that Kyle Larson is going to have a really good day here. I think he's going to run up front for most of the race, and I have him having a really good day here. So with that being said, I'm going to go with the under for lead changes.
I'm going with the over on this because I still feel like this new car, which is in its 2nd year, has definitely leveled the playing field a lot. I think that's why we saw that big jump in lead changes last year at 32. I think we're going to see a little bit of the same. I don't think there's going to be one driver that absolutely dominates, meaning like out of the how many laps are they running? I think it's like 200. Out of the 200, somebody leads over half of those laps. I can't see that happening. I think that the most dominating car this week is going to lead 30 laps tops. So I think that I'm going to go with the over 22 and a half for lead changes this Sunday at Auto Club.
All right, man. That's going to wrap up our over and under for the week heading into Auto Club this Sunday. Last topic, man. Previewing Auto Club, man. It's 200 laps, you said. Sure. Second race already. Man, this season needs to slow down already.
So here's the thing about Auto Club that I love, and this is no shot at Daytona 500. This isn't saying that super speedways aren't races, but this is where the season starts. Okay, that's true. You good?
Yeah, it sounded like you said super speedways aren't races.
That's definitely not what I said. I literally did. Okay, anyway. I think this is where the season really starts, though, man, because this is where you're tuning your car up, you drop the cars on the track, and if you have a strong car, you're going to pull away from everybody. Yeah. So this is where the season starts, and that's what excites me most about Auto Club, man. I love having this as the second race of the season. It sucks that this is going to be the final year that we see it at this 2-mile configuration, as they are going to basically resize the track. They're getting it down to, I want to say it's a half a mile track. So that does suck, but
yeah.
I think it's going to be a hell of a race. What are your thoughts on Auto Club coming up?
It's a track that I love, man, outside of NASCAR Heat 5 because I suck at it. But no, it always provides good racing, great racing. It's really probably one of the better races to follow up the Daytona 500. You mentioned the amount of lead changes that we get, the amount of great racing that we get. Excuse me. I'm just excited to see everything unfold this Sunday. I do think, despite this track having the amount of lead changes in the past, I definitely think that we're going to have a driver that does really good here. I think Kyle Larson is really going to flex his muscles, not only this season, but here at Auto Club this weekend. So really looking forward to it, man. I think it's going to be a really good race and definitely one that people should not miss.
Definitely. So let's take a look at the last 5 winners here at Auto Club. So as you see, 2022, you have Kyle Larson, who won it. In 2020, they didn't have a race in 2021 because of COVID, but in 2020, Mike's favorite race car driver, Alex Bowman, was able to win it. Probably
Listen,
his last win of his career.
The way I look at it is he's a teammate for a few more years now. So Alex Bowman, that's my guy. That's my guy, bro.
Okay. Wow. Really singing a different tune after that contract signing. In 2019, Kyle Busch, who I was looking at some stats earlier today, and this is a small sample size, obviously, but I think it dated back to about 2019. Out of all the race tracks that we go to since 2019, Auto Club has been the 3rd best track for Kyle Busch. So watch out for him this Sunday for sure. 2018, Martin Truex Jr. was able to win it. And then 2017, Kyle Larson, when he was with Chip Ganassi Racing, was able to bring home the checkered flag. So those are the past 5 Auto Club winners. Looking at these past 5, Mike, do you see any sort of theme or anything that really stands out to you?
Nothing really, man. I mean, I think that you have your Chevy drivers and Toyota. I mean, it kind of seems to be dominated by those two. And although Joey Logano runs good here, which is obviously running a Ford, I'm just interested to see if it kind of continues on this trend. See if Chevy dominates or Toyota dominates this race. And just kind of see how that plays out towards the front. So that's the big thing that sticks out to me. And then obviously Kyle Larson, man, 2 wins in the past several years. So really good track for him.
The thing I want to see is you see Alex Bowman in 2020 took off a year, then Kyle Larson in 2022. So you look at it back-to-back races at Auto Club, Hendrick Motorsports has won. Can Hendrick keep it up? Do we see a Chase Elliott win it? Do we see a William Byron or just one of these 2 guys that's won it in the past couple of years? Do we see Hendrick go for the 3-peat? Are they able to do it? Or does somebody else prevail to take that away? we'll just have to see. So let's go ahead and jump into our predictions for who we think is going to be in victory lane after Sunday's race at Auto Club. So I'll go ahead and start it off. I said it earlier when we were talking about Joey Logano in the over-under segment. Joey Logano's very good here. As I said, 4 top 5s and 4 top 10s in the past 5 races here. That one race that he didn't finish there, he finished 12th. So he was right there on the cusp of another top 10. He's very good here. I believe he has 1 or 2 wins. I think that he's going to be able to add another trophy to that mantle of his. I think Joey Logano has a hell of a race. He leads about 30 to 35 laps, and that's going to be dominating in my opinion. And I think he's able to win the race at Auto Club. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a guy who has won here in the past, Martin Truex Jr. I came into the year saying that I thought that he was going to have a bounce back year, get a couple wins under his belts, get back to the Martin Truex Jr. that we have seen in the past. And I think that starts off this weekend at Auto Club, man. I'm excited to see how he runs here. I felt bad for him getting caught up in that wreck at the 500 this past weekend. So really excited to see him kind of come in here at Auto Club and get a win. So I'm going to go with Martin Truex Jr. to kick off the season, really, with it being the second race of the year with his name penciled in, pinned in, unlike last year to make the playoffs. So I'm going Martin Truex Jr.
So as you see down below the cars in the name, I have the season scoreboard there. As I mentioned last week, basically how me and Mike are doing it is we're going to pick one driver, obviously a week to win. We can only pick that driver once in a, I believe, 4 or 5 week span. And how we're going to do it is we get points based off of where they finish. So if you finish second, you get 2 points. If you finish 20th, you get 20 points. But it's the person who has the lowest points at the end of the season that wins. So last week I picked Martin Truex Jr. He finished 15th. I had 15 points. Mike picked Ryan Blaney. He finished 8th. Mike has 8 points. So as of right now, after week 1 of the NASCAR season, Mike is in the lead by 7 points. We'll see what happens after Auto Club this Sunday.
Yeah, not shocked. Not shocked. When you pick a guy like Ryan Blaney, I mean, you're going to get nothing but great results. So
yeah, I can't wait for you to pick him again because whatever.
I mean, as soon as my 4 or 5 weeks up, I can tell you who's coming in at week number 6. Already, I don't even know where they.
Well, at least
doesn't matter.
You know, you're not going to get 1 point because it won't be a win. But I understand.
Wow. Okay. All right, man. That's going to wrap up episode 21. Any final thoughts before we kind of log off here? Daytona 500 delivered. Was great to kind of talk about that. Great to jump into some Auto Club preview. And yeah, man, I'm excited for Sunday.
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning into episode 21 of the 4 Wide Podcast. We'll see y'all next week.